Okay, are you guys ready for my favorite part of the show? My co-producer, Dr. Dred Matthews, gives what I call a guest lecture. He's incredible. Start clapping out for Dr. Dred Matthews, everybody.
Stole the clicker. Oh, thank you. What I took away from that whole talk was that you could just call the U.S. Geological Survey and lie and tell them you felt an earthquake. As much as you want, and no one's going to stop you. It's exciting. While I get back to the slides, for those of you who haven't been here, let me just tell you what it is you're about to see. It's complete nonsense, but my name is Greg Matthews. You can call me Dr. Gregory Matthews if you want. I have a PhD in statistics, and I love telling people that I do that. And what I do is I like to take the topic of the show, which tonight is geology, and I like to do a little data analysis, and I like to present it to you. None of this jokey joke stuff, just real solid academic work. Basically, imagine you took an immature 14-year-old and you gave them advanced analytic skills. This is what would happen, basically. So there's a picture of a geologist, and I didn't really. I heard we were doing geology, and I was like, when I think about geology, I think about rocks. So I Googled, what is geology? Because I thought it had to be more impressive than that. And I got a word cloud, and no, it's just about rocks. Those are the words that show up the most. So what are we going to talk about tonight? We're going to talk about rocks, okay? Yeah, it's a cracked rock. Some people say it. That's what we're talking about, right? Rocks? Okay. No one laughs, she's just pointing at each other. So here's the thing about with clouds, okay? Sometimes we look at clouds and we see things that are in clouds. Here's an example of a camel or a dragon breathing fire. We see things that aren't there, or a billionaire's rocket ship, right? We do the same thing with rocks, right? We do the same thing with rocks. And this is an example, probably the most famous. It's the Old Man in the Mountain. This is in New Hampshire. And actually, this is an old picture. It looks like this right now because it fell off. And this. Are you really sad about that? No. Fuck New Hampshire. They don't deserve nice things. I lived there for 2 years. They don't have a state income tax, and this is what happens when you can't fund things. Jesus Christ, New Hampshire. I went to the gym once in New Hampshire, and a guy walked in with a full holster with a gun, 2 guns on his hips. It's the deep south of New England. Anyway, so this spawned an entire Facebook page called Rocks That Look Like Other Things. So this is where when I was doing my research, this is where it took me. This is dessert. Here's one it says fossilized taco, question mark? Sure, I guess. And then this one is a chicken nugget, which actually has the same nutritional quality as an actual chicken nugget. So then this is the post that started it all, and this is actually a museum in Japan. It's just a Japanese museum of rocks that look like faces, and they got some real bangers. They got Elvis, which I think is fantastic. They got Mikhail Gorbachev, complete with a smile. And my favorite is Nemo. Oh, Nemo! Oh, the man in the mountain and Nemo. You guys love it. All right. So, I know Diaz said we can't do AI anymore, but the point is that humans are becoming antiquated. It doesn't matter what we think rocks look like anymore, because in modern day, we care what AI thinks. So the question is, what does AI think rocks look like? And that's the analysis that I went and did. So I went and got a data set of 23,000 pictures of rocks. There's about 50 rock classes in here. I learned that there's a type of rock called a chert. I don't know what that means, but yeah, one fan of chert out there. And I'm going to classify them using a pre-trained neural network called Image Darknet. Here's some of the pictures that I went and classified, okay? And so here's the top 10 answers for what the results with an exclamation point because we're excited. Here's what the most often top class, and you can see that it mostly gets it right. So megalith, stonewall, trilobite, which is like a kind of fossil cliff, basically gets it. But the ones that I think are really interesting are meatloaf. I didn't quite understand that one, and French loaf. And I actually didn't know what a French loaf was. I had to look this up. And so it's actually a French loaf, it's just a loaf of bread. Not to be confused with a Hollywood loaf, which is a half-erect penis. We're learning things. I got those confused. They both have a loaf for them. What's the difference? So let's look at some meatloaf rocks, because I didn't really understand what a meatloaf rock would look like. And so here's the one. This is number 3. This is classified at, it was a 70% chance this was meatloaf. This is number 2. And this is number 1. Just like Mama used to make. It's a meatloaf rock. Okay, so, and when you look at them next to meatloaf, it takes a while to actually pick it out. So there's rocks in here and there's some meatloafs, and it's actually hard to pick it out. So I thought that was kind of fun. There's 2 meatloafs up there, see if you can find them. No. Okay, all right. So then what's the next logical question that any reasonable scientist would ask? If rocks classify as meatloaf, does meatloaf classify as a rock? Okay? So what I did is I got 25 pictures of meatloaf and I went and classified them and see if they came up with rocks. The most common top 2 answers were meatloaf, so basically got it pretty correct, and French loaf. So AI will always be able to tell you, they're like, nah, it's some kind of loaf. I don't know what kind it is, but it's a loaf. So AI is pretty good. And so what meatloaf looks most like a rock? This one right here, classified with stone wall. It's a very low probability. This classified as stone wall. This one, and what meatloafs were misclassified? We have crock pot, rotisserie, and of course, tailed frog. Okay. So what's now the next logical question? The next logical question that any reasonable scientist would ask is, if rocks classify as meatloaf, and meatloaf classifies as meatloaf, does Meatloaf the singer classify as meatloaf? So what I did is I went and got some pictures of Meatloaf. But by the way, I want to be very clear that Meatloaf with 2 words is his name. Meatloaf once complained about people spelling his name as 1 word. If you do that, you got to be a moron. That's a direct quote from him. And this article had 3 bullet points about Meatloaf. One was Meatloaf wanted to be very clear that his name was not Meatloaf 1 word. He said his name was on every poster, every album, and every ticketed as 2 words, and he died on Thursday, age 74. This is obituary. This man's whole life, the one notable thing about him is that it's fucking 2 words. I mean, he did a lot of other stuff too, right? Okay, so the most common predicted class for Meatloaf, for my Meatloaf pictures, was academic gown. And I think this is fitting because Meatloaf is a renowned intellectual. And I'd like to read you this quote from Meatloaf. And in things that sound like food but isn't really food news, Meatloaf said that he doesn't believe in climate change and claimed that climate action activist Greta Thunberg has somehow been brainwashed. He also claimed that he is a sex god. Meatloaf. No one should be asking Meatloaf any questions about anything, except for what he thinks about meatloaf. But then, even then, you shouldn't even give a shit about it. No one should care what Meatloaf thinks about anything. Anyway, does anyone even know who Meatloaf is? Yeah. I'm old, I don't know if my references are, okay. So, the most likely Meatloaf picture to be Meatloaf was this picture right here. It's kind of pink, I guess, all right. And the most likely Meatloaf picture to be a stone was also this picture. So I don't know what that means, but that's what we found. Okay, the most interesting classification was this photo right here. So what did this classify as? This classified actually as a hoop skirt with 40% probability. And I was like, well, I don't understand. A hoop skirt? What the fuck is a hoop skirt? So I went and I Googled it, and what is a hoop skirt? That right there is a hoop skirt, right? They put the hoops in the skirt, and it makes it larger, and it's like from like medieval times. And I was like, I don't really see it. I don't really see why that's a hoop skirt. And then I was like, oh no, there it is. It's actually a perfect hoop skirt. AI really nailed it. I was starting to doubt it, but they really crushed it. Perfect hoop skirt. So what's next? We've covered regular rocks. We've covered regular meatloaves. We've covered famous meatloaves. The next place to go is to talk about famous rocks. It's just logical. So let's look at some famous rocks. We're going to talk. I collected all these images of these different ones. I'm not going to present all of them, but I want to show you what I looked at. So I looked at things like Plymouth Rock, Gibraltar, the Rock of Gibraltar, Chris Rock, Kid Rock, and of course, the. I also wanted to include some stones, because there was some interesting stones, and stones are basically rocks. I'm gonna get killed by the geologist. Actually, stones are, okay. Famous stones, Blarney, Emma, Oliver, Sharon, and kidney stones. So these are all things that I looked at. So I got a whole bunch of pictures of kidney stones and classified them. Nothing interesting, but I did look. Okay, so results with an exclamation point, because we're excited about them. Okay, so the Blarney stone classifies as a shovel, not that interesting. Rosetta Stone, classified as a bulletproof vest. Sure. And Plymouth Rock, classified as a French loaf. But if you stare at it long enough, it looks like a Hollywood loaf. Am I wrong? Okay. So then I looked at Emma Stone. This photo of Emma Stone classifies as hoop skirt. And I was like, nah, I don't really see it. And then, oh, there it is. That's perfect. Perfect hoop skirt. It's a perfect hoop skirt. That makes total sense. Oh, Emma. Okay. Okay. So then, of course, we have Kid Rock, famous rock, another renowned brain. So this is a picture of Kid Rock on the cover of Rolling Stone. This image classified as a pickle hob. Does anyone know what a pickle hob is? It's this thing right here. That's Otto von Bismarck. I don't know who that is, but that's what Wikipedia said. So that's what it classified as. And then here's 3 more pictures of Kid Rock, and these classified as academic gown, and lab coat. He's in the lab. He's in the lab. And I think this is also fitting because Kid Rock is another widely regarded intellectual, and I'd like to read a tweet from Kid Rock. This is a tweet from March 22nd, 2024. He quotes the Bible, and those who hate the righteousness will be condemned. And then he goes on to say, there's no question in my mind that God will punish this rat-faced judge, ugly C-word of a prosecutor, and everyone else who has been part of this communist bullshit. Kid Rock. Thank you, Kid. Thank you, Kid Rock. Finally, I'd like to end with The Rock, and there he is. And he classifies most often as a Windsor tie. So there's 8 images of The Rock that I used. 4 of them classified as the Windsor tie. 1 of them classified as a bow tie, and 1 of them classified as a bulletproof vest, and the last one was a neck brace. That's not The Rock. That's just the pictures that go along with it. But you'll notice that there's only 7 images that I have here. So there's an 8th image that I classified of The Rock, and here is that image. Oh, no. Oh, let me go back. Sometimes we see things in clouds that aren't there. And sometimes we see things in rocks that aren't there. And sometimes when we look at The Rock, we see things that aren't there. I'm talking, of course, about this right here. It's The Rock. So this is a picture of how we get to it, and this is a picture of The Rock that I classified. That's the 8th image of The Rock that I classified. Does anyone know what this classified as? Does anyone know? It's not Hollywood Loaf. Shockingly, Hollywood Loaf is not part of Darknet as the default. Does anyone know what this classified as? The answer is hoop skirt. Oh my God, I'm lying. It didn't classify as a hoop skirt. The real answer is way better. It classified as a proboscis monkey. I swear to God, that's true. That's the real thing that it classified as. I fucking love it so much. What have we learned today? We learned what a Hollywood Loaf was. Meatloaf and Kid Rock are 2 of mankind's greatest intellectuals. A lot of rocks kind of look like Meatloaf. Thanks to Kwong for helping me with some coding issues. He's right there. Let's get a round of applause for Kwong. Follow the show and me on Instagram. I was explaining the census to this guy, and he called me a tenured moron. Have a great night. I'm Greg Matthews.
You know, for Dr. Greg Matthews, everybody. This is the best that ever happened from a middle-aged white guy on Darknet. Okay, are you guys ready to keep the show going? Your next stand-up is also one of the best in it. He's a cast member here at the Lincoln Lodge. Give it up for Dan Drees, everybody.